Everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Oracle Podcast. I am giving you guys a astrology and energetic read for this coming week, November 17th through 23rd, or just the new moon energetics. That's kind of how I like to do it. It's kind of nice when it's like a cyclical, and we kind of get a vibe for what this new moon's about. And man, I was just going deep into the new moon and its energetics, and it's really fucking powerful. And I wanted to talk about it and see where you guys are at, because I mean, I don't know about you, but right now we have, with the moon upcoming on Wednesday, we'll have 5 planets in Scorpio. Currently we have 4. There will be 5, which is a pretty massive stellium at this time of year, especially because it's Scorpio season. So it's extra because the sun's in Scorpio. The star of the sun is in the constellation of Scorpio. And, the Scorpio season is really about, it's the time of the year that there's a reason why Halloween is celebrated in Scorpio season. It's a time of the year where the veil is thin. We're moving between realms. We're moving between light to more dark. And we're entering into a more yin phase. And it was funny because in the beginning of it, I was like super stoked. And now it's like, it just became winter here. And I don't know about you guys, but like this energy right now feels so intense. Like, I feel like I am going through the most intense initiatory shadow initiation portal. And I'm going to tell you why. When I was looking at the astrology, I was like, this is very powerful what we have going on right now. And it's really a Lilith fucking portal, man. Okay? The past couple of my podcasts have really, a lot of it's been about Lilith, and Lilith is massively activated, like so intensely on this new moon. And, it's interesting because a lot of people, don't really know what Lilith is. I think I have to explain every time who she is. And I mean, I only know because I don't know how I know. I think she's definitely a familiar, but, I think I first heard of her through the Lilith Fair, and which was, she's the outcasted wife of Adam because she was refused to submit to him. And so she was outcasted from the Garden of Eden. And then she was like demonized and turned into this evil figure, which is just right there should tell you everything you need to know about Christianity and how fucked it is for the feminine and how fucked it is for women and men. I mean, the whole thing's so fucked, because this was a woman that, was in her autonomy, in her sovereignty, had boundaries, wasn't afraid to speak her truth, knew who she was, didn't want to conform, didn't want to submit, didn't want to be dominated, and was, told basically banished to hell, So let's get that straight, okay? Second of all, she is, she's just kind of coming online right now, energetically energetically, like as an energetic archetype. And she rules this kind of rage, and it's not just an archetype that belongs to women. It belongs to anybody that's been suppressed or caged or forced to conform, or where you've been there's a real deep wound. It was funny because I've been really I'm committing to this book I'm writing right now on the shadow, which is perfect for the time of year we're in. I got my discipline mug here that I've been drinking out of. But and I was writing today, and I was it's funny sometimes when you write and just like where your mind goes. And I haven't like free written just like, and like this in a long time. It's so amazing. It's so interesting how we keep ourselves sometimes from doing creative things that our soul yearns to do. I mean, there's so many of us. Some people just like are creative and they were like, their parents really encouraged them to be creative. And like, it's easy for them to express that. And, I come from a very creative family, but it was a lot of stifled creativity. My dad was, my mom and dad both are very, very creative people, but they both they wouldn't call themselves artists, even though they both were. And so I think in this lifetime, I'm really working to reclaim that title and to give, because it's, to really let yourself create is like one of the deepest, I think it's one of the deepest acts of self-love that you can do for yourself. Because I've really noticed these days with these energies that are going on right now, that when I'm not creating and I'm consuming, my energy frequency goes so low and I get really depressed. And the only way to come out of that is when I start creating. It's really wild. And I think it has a lot to do with the energetics of the time and just where we're at. But anyway, back to Lilith. So I was writing this morning and I was like, it was funny because I was talking about power, and domination, because Lilith is this archetype that's this wild feminine elemental energy. And, she's this forbidden feminine energy, right? And, she refuses to be dominated. Okay. And it was funny because she's lived a life as an outcast because of that. And I cannot tell you how much I fucking relate to that archetype. And it's not an easy, it's like, yeah, you can say, say you were born in a family that had more, was more conforming, or you were forced to conform. And that has its own whole set of whatever, I'm not saying I'm cool or cooler because I didn't conform. It's been a really challenging life. It's been part of my energetic makeup from a very, very young age. And I was writing out a story about, I remembered this story from when I was like 9, 10 years old. My mom had moved us to La Jolla because my sister was being rebellious because she was taking too much acid. Welcome to California. Welcome to being in a rock and roll family, okay? In the 90s, early 90s. And my mom got freaked out with the kids she was hanging out with. So my mom moved us to La Jolla from Encinitas. Encinitas is our hometown. My sister and I fucking hated La Jolla. It's bougie. Even in the 90s, it was bougie. We didn't like it. Even though we lived in a really cool area, it's, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I remember... my mom's all, my mom, I remember nobody was home on this Friday night. No one was home. I don't know where my sister was. My mom was out. I was alone, which is fine. I loved that. But I remember I had a neighbor that invited me over to a sleepover, and I rode my bike over to her house, and it was like 9:00. We had like played a little bit or hung out and had dinner. And around 9:00, the mom was like, okay, you guys got to get ready for bed. And I remember just being like, I'm not going to bed this early. And I told the mom, I was like, I don't want to go to bed this early. I want to go home, and I don't want this. And I don't know how I got the mom to comply, but like I literally got on my bicycle at 10 years old on my Huffy at like 9:30 at night. It was like, peace out. And I remembered when I like left that house, I remember it was like nighttime, and I remember getting on my bicycle and like feeling so happy to escape those rules. And it was like this fresh air of the night, and like I was like biking away, and I was like so happy, and I like got to go home, and I went home to an empty house. Nobody was there. My mom was out, my sister was out, and I got to watch TGIF, which was like my favorite thing to watch, and like eat what I wanted and do what I wanted. And it was like my favorite thing, which set the tone for the rest of my life, which was, it's part of my genetic makeup, I think, also just whatever, but I do not follow rules. I just do not follow rules very well. I never, ever, ever have, which is also why I've struggled with boundaries quite a bit. And it's like the ultimate lesson of my life, to remain authentic to who I am and wild, but still create boundaries to preserve myself. So anyway, I digress about that. But Lilith is that archetype where, and then I was writing, it's not been an easy life to not conform. Like, I had so many periods in my life where I wish I could fit in, where I wish I could go to church and be like everybody else. And I remember I went to church twice in my entire childhood, and both times I just felt this overwhelming oppression. And I was like, what is everybody? I felt like I was in trouble from the second I walked into wherever the fuck it was. Just felt like I was in trouble, and it wasn't for me. And that's been the story of my life. It's like never fitting into any group, always being an outsider, always being rebellious. That's Lilith. And it's also connected to the wild elemental, which is, lately for me, what's been going on, and I think it's the Scorpio energy, is all of the pain of feeling like that outcasted energy, and the brilliance and the power and everything that's wrapped up in it has been really, really, really coming to the surface for me lately. And I have been going through these waves, and that's what this period is all about, because we're in Scorpio. We have 5 planets for this new moon on Wednesday in Scorpio, and they're including Lilith, Venus, Mercury, Sun, Moon, which, those are, and they're all personal planets that are really close to us. We feel them directly. But Scorpio is very much about, it's the shadow energetics. Lilith is the shadow energetics. I'm writing a book on the shadow energetics right now. And what does that mean? What does that look like? And, it's the things that have been hidden. The things that have been hidden away, that you've hidden away from yourself, from the world. A lot of it has to do with our creativity and our gifts. And what have we hidden away because we're afraid, So it's like, I was always somebody that never fit in. And then, I was innately creative, but never had any structure at all. I had no father figure around. And then my mom, bless her heart, was, a wild woman too. And, I was left alone a lot. And I had to develop my own coping mechanisms and, but it's led me to the woman that I am today. But I'm just giving my story because it's connected to Lilith, which is like, a lot of it has to do with this kind of sovereignty, unapologetic, unwilling to conform, and then the punishment and the placement of where we're put in society through that process. And then because of the projections of others from not fitting in, there's a lot of light that goes underground, right? It's like you still maintain, like I cannot conform. It's not, and I'm not saying that as a way that I'm like, think I'm better than anybody else. It's been really tough because for whatever reasons I can't. And I wear it on my sleeve. I'm completely honest. And it's not been easy. And so this life has been a work in progress because there is an innate rebellion. But like with this Lilith activation, we're really, really having to unearth these maybe suppressed parts of ourselves. I've been doing like intense shadow work the past week. I don't know about you guys. Really going deep into hidden subconscious layers, really paying attention to my dreams, doing very, very deep dream work and dream inquiry. And, really looking at the things that I've hidden away or suppressed. For me, a lot of it's coming down to my creativity, my voice. The other thing that we have on this activation, Lilith portal, basically, so that the new moon is going to be at 28 degrees, these are all at the later degrees of Scorpio, which is a very, it's like a very developed, mature part of Scorpio. And remember, Scorpio rules death, rebirth, transformation, sex, intensity, wealth, things that are hidden away, truth, going to the deepest part, investigators, like detectives, unearthing. And then, so we've got the unearthing of all of this suppressed, wild feminine energy that's coming to the surface. What's wild about it is that, all of this, the new moon's at 28 degrees, and all these conjunctions are clumped together, but it's directly opposing on this new moon Uranus at 29 degrees. It's almost exact. And Uranus it's called the Great Awakener. Whatever it touches, it like electrifies, electrocutes, shocks, awakens, upgrades. It kind of brings you out of any kind of, it activates. Activate is a great word. And it's got a lot of sudden energy around it. Sudden activations, clarity, upheaval, rewiring, moves, downloads, breakups, and then, mixing with this initiation into the underworld, hidden feminine powers activated, shadow excavation, reclaiming exiled and suppressed parts of ourselves. Reclaiming exiled and suppressed parts of the self. And then going, shadow work is, it's number one, not for the faint of heart. I was just doing some deep diving last night. I was like, I went to bed at like 9 last night, and then I woke up at 2. And then I was reading this book on Saturn. And I was trying to understand, in my chart, I have this Saturn conjunct Pluto at the very base of my chart, which basically lends me to an entire life. My life is like dedicated to this kind of underworld energy and unearthing the depths. That's why I'm attracted to this kind of stuff, and I revel in it. And I was like, why was this my destiny? Like, why? Because it's always so deep for me. It's never, I can have a lot of fun, but it's always I'm a deep person, and I go very deep. And, for whatever reason, it's to really in this lifetime learn very, very powerful lessons about, the shedding of false selves, false identities, ego identities, conformist protective mechanisms, internalized shame, internalized projections, guilt that runs the show, shedding all that shit and stepping into a more sovereign, integrated, integrated and in your integrity, sovereign, feminine, where through that process, unearthing the true version, the true versions of ourselves. What is the true? What has been suppressed? And there's immense creativity in there, you guys. It all comes down to creativity, because we're creating ourselves all along the way. What gifts have we hidden from the world? What have we complied with? What have we, lost? What is it time to reclaim? And then really kind of going through the portal of that. So like the shadow work piece of it is like really, really, really doing some deep diving around patterns, subconscious material, the why. A great way to engage in shadow work is really when you notice that you're in a loop of reactivity around something, you get triggered or activated by something, and you notice that you have the same loop and reaction. stop and ask yourself the question, what is this really about? And lately, what I have found is that there's layers, and we all have the ability to only go so deep when we're able, and this last week, our ego, but it has a lot to do with being vulnerable and having humility and letting your ego fucking die so that you can go to the core truth about what is really going on with you. Because our egos hold up how we want to appear, and our egos do not want to be vulnerable. And we've internalized a lot of that. We don't want, people projected things onto us when we were young, and then we internalize that. So we judge ourselves. We don't want to be certain types of people. We don't want it. And vulnerability is the number one, humility are the number one keys of transformation. Remember that. Remember that. Vulnerability and humility are the keys to transformation. So when you ask yourself, what is this really about? You can do it in many different layers. But a lot of times, if you're able to access the truth of how you actually feel, which requires, a lot of vulnerability. Like lately, when I've been asking myself that, because yesterday, I was in this really funky mood yesterday. I felt this internal tension, and I felt kind of mildly depressed, and I was like, what's going on? Why can't I just be a fucking happy person all the time? And I remember I was just driving, and it's been I just let myself feel the depths of pain that I've been feeling around certain topics. And I was just crying yesterday, and it felt so good. It felt so good to release and acknowledge, and it's we have this, so many of us in, the spiritual communities, it's you want to be positive, dude. Duh, I want to be positive too. That's how we know this. We have to be positive and maintain positive mindsets, and yes. But you also cannot, it's a very fine line between being positive and bypassing the truth. And then, the shadow work is, you're not supposed to live in it. You're supposed to let it pass through you. And that's where people get stuck. They get stuck in the victim, because when you are doing shadow work, a lot of times you are acknowledging your pain, which can put you in a victim mindset. But really, it's really about, it's paradox. We are both empowered and victims. And sometimes, lately, I've just been feeling tired, and I have been vibing with Lilith archetype of feeling outcasted and exhausted and just tired and I'm not meant for this world, but it's bringing up all of the dark shit that's underneath, and through that process, what's funny is that I've been writing. The creativity is actually fucking coming out of me in a way I haven't been able to get it to come out in so long, you guys. And it's because I'm accessing the truth because I've built up walls around these things. So if Lilith and this Scorpio and all this stuff, this new moon, it's a real activation of this deep primordial feminine power. So, eruptions of suppressed emotions, women breaking out of toxic dynamics, rebellions against old roles, primal rage releasing, intuitive lightning strikes, a collapse of good girl programming. And, anywhere in our lives where we have felt either we've sacrificed ourselves and our souls for the benefit of others, or where we have, been outcasted. It's lots of different, for being true to ourselves. This fucking planet has not been an easy planet. I was like I've been watching football this year because I don't know. Don't ask me why. And I was watching the Bills, and I was watching their like fucking quarterback who's like just so gorgeous and so humble and so talented. And, and I was like, why didn't I have a life like that one in this lifetime? Who are these people? And then ChatGPT was like, because you have to go through all this shit to, get to that place. You have to unearth the darkness inside of yourself to be able to shine. Those people are shining. They're shining freely. They're able to shine. And what I'm working through, and I think what a lot of us are working through on this, Scorpio new moon, is unearthing a lot of what has been blocking us. And it's really coming in hard with this Uranus opposition. Not only that, we've got a grand trine in water. Like this is like something that's like a rare. This is a very rare mixture of planets. So we have 5 planets in Scorpio, and then it's trining, which is a harmonious aspect, Jupiter in Cancer, and then it's trining Neptune conjunct Saturn in Pisces, and they're all in this 25 to 29 degree range, which is the end of a cycle. Towards the end of the cycle, the 29th degree is the last degree. So where there's a real level of maturity here and ability to handle emotion, because like that much water is all emotion. It's all intuition. It's all feminine. So that's why the crying, right? It's a lot of emotion coming through right now. A lot of water. Just remember, the water really, really cleanses the soul. It really releases the valves of things when they're stuck and makes way for transformative energetics, if that makes sense. This Jupiter in Cancer is like the feminine mother archetype. Cancer is the mother archetype. Jupiter expands. And then we have the Neptune Saturn conjunction, which is bringing real spiritual discipline. I mean, this is a straight up witches reading. I mean, this is like, get ready to have some things revealed on this new moon. And, a new moon is where you plant seeds. So there's revelations and new seeds planted for this next upcoming cycle of 28 days. So what are you gonna plant? We're gonna go deeper into this in the Moonshapers Collective, a collective I've created. And we're gonna be meeting on Wednesday. The link's on my website. It'll also be in this podcast info. It'll be on my Instagram, Chase Butiche, at Chase Butiche. So yeah, the Grand Trine, we can talk about some of the dynamics with the Grand Trine. Jupiter, intuition, ancestral lineage, mother line, emotional confidence, inner child healing. Saturn in Pisces, karmic lessons, completing, emotional boundaries, discipline and devotion. Neptune, veil dissolved, mystical gifts coming online, dream worlds. So that mixed with the Saturn, with the Scorpio stellium. We have shadow, priestess, wild, exiled, sovereign, intuitive, mystical, erotic, ancestral. Those are some themes. Shadow work, emotional detox, secret surfacing, unconscious rising, death rebirth, empowerment through truth from rage, feminine rage and healing. Saying to oneself, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I think that's what's been coming up for me is I've been having a lot of grief and rage around what has been done to the fucking witches of the world. It's crazy, man. You know, and my life has been like the grief of that, and then knowing that I have to continue to move forward and not lose this, because I'm still connected to this lineage, and I must continue it. You know, even though, and it's because it cannot die, and will not die. It will transform, though. And, you know, for the first time in many thousands of years, the witches of the world can honestly now begin to come out of the closet. We can come out of the shadows. We don't have to hide as much anymore. Our light, our gifts, our powers. And we're kind of like, we're coming out. I can't tell you the amount of amazing women that I know that struggle so much with, that are these witches, powerful ass priestesses, that struggle so much with putting themselves out there. I have a friend that like basically makes websites very low cost, and she's amazing, and she's like a whiz, and I've offered so many of my witchy friends, like, you know, then so many of them are like, yes, and then it's just, there's a very intense block around being seen for one's gifts because of the collective ancestral memory of being burned alive for it. It's so fucked up. But anyway, we're coming out of that. We're coming out of that cycle, but we have to go through this Lilith portal and this initiation where all of these things that were exiled have to start coming up. And we have to pay attention to the exile. We have to pay attention to the grief. We have to acknowledge the exile. Because that's what Lilith was. She was exiled. And I felt like that my whole life, honestly. And finding the power in it, finding the grace, finding the dignity, finding your integrity, because there is true integrity in it, because there's non-compromising. And that is why I do know who I am, you know? So yeah, this is a Lilith portal we're going through right now. And it's a very powerful time of doing intensive shadow work. And just letting yourself really process the truth of how you feel about something, and calling upon the deepest humility and vulnerability you can conjure in your being. And if you don't know what that feels like or what that looks like, you know, just cracking the shell. You know, when you're not vulnerable or you don't have humility, what you're doing is you're sending yourself the message that you're not allowed. You're sending your inner child the message that it can't be seen, and it still needs to suppress its emotions, which perpetuates a certain kind of darkness and power over dynamic. When you liberate the truth, which there's a lot of pride. There's a lot of pride on those exteriors. You know, this is what, you know, narcissism is an inability to access vulnerability. It's an inability to access vulnerability because of the pride, because usually it's people who are very, very wounded, and they create such a thick layer that turns into domination based because they can't access the pain of their own wounding. And the same goes for the dark feminine, or the darker aspects of the self. So, you know, witches can turn into a victim mentality. That's the other side of the narcissist, which one, you know, is the victim empath who's perpetually a victim and has no boundaries and blah, blah, blah. So those are the same archetype, but in different forms. And what we're being asked of now is to move through using vulnerability and humility to move past all of these ego identities that we have created that have blocked us from accessing our deeper soul's wisdom and our deeper soul's truth, to access the truth behind what we really feel. And remember, when you access the truth, that's when you start to live in authentic integrity with yourself and your soul. And nobody can fuck with you when you're in your integrity. Nobody, nothing, and no one. It's like it's really when you're in your power. And it's really based in truth. So I hope that helps. I could talk about this forever. I'm writing a book on it. So, and I'm doing it. I'm fucking writing it right now. It's hard, but I'm doing it. I'm unearthing my gifts. So I hope that you unearth your gifts and start to think about what your gifts are to give to the world. Remember, you're never too old. It's never too late to start to be more creative. It's not just for those few people, in life that were, given some gift, or that it was nurtured early, or that are, these amazing artists. It's for people, all of us, to discover our soul's song and, begin to find ways of expressing. I mean, I've been feeling it's like the only thing that's like, a lot of this shadow work, I've been really digging into these female kind of folk rock singers. And that's like the way that they express their voices is like this kind of howling of this primal feminine pain and rage. And it's really been hitting the chord for me. And I got an electric guitar and I've been practicing. I'm doing the things, guys. All right, I could talk about this forever, but this is probably enough. So join us for Moonshapers on Wednesday, the Moonshapers Collective. We're going to be discussing this fucking new moon. We're going to do a meditation, and we're going to talk about what we're planting. We're going to practice a little witchcraft. Join us. Witchcraft meaning, we're going to set intentions, and we're going to work with the energies. So join us. Okay. Love you guys. This is a long one today. Okay. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.